CBS News has learned New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand is set to announce she is launching a presidential exploratory committee. According to our Ed O'Keefe, the announcement is expected to come during a Tuesday appearance on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert on CBS. This comes after Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard and former HUD Secretary Julián Castro both announced they are running over the weekend. Gabbard, who has represented Hawaii in Congress since 2013, is an Iraq war veteran and currently serves on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Castro kicked off his campaign Saturday in San Antonio, where he served as mayor before working for the Obama administration. Castro told supporters he entered the race because there is a, quote, crisis of leadership in the country.
I'm running for president because it's time for new leadership, because it's time for new energy, and it's time for a new commitment to make sure that the opportunities that I've had are available to every American. There is a crisis today. It's a crisis of leadership. Donald Trump has failed to uphold the values of our great nation.
Let's bring in Ryan Poppe into this conversation with our Caitlin Huey-Burns, who has so kindly stuck around. Ryan is the senior political correspondent for Texas Public Radio. He is in Austin. Thanks to both of you. Ryan, you covered Texas politics while Castro was mayor of San Antonio. What does he bring to the table for the Democrats?
Inclusion, really. He was one of the youngest mayors when first elected. He still remains the youngest city council member that the city has ever seen at age 26, first being elected. And he spoke of some of the things that he implemented as mayor that he would like to bring into his presidential campaign, like this effort to extend pre-K education to anybody who wanted it. And that wasn't a very easy thing to do. He had to convince voters to spend about $30 million on a sales tax referendum in order for that to happen. That was one of the things that he included in his speech this Saturday, is that he'd like to have, instead of a pre-K for SA, is what the program is called, pre-K for the USA, extending that same initiative for the entire country.
And more widely, how is Castro viewed in Texas? I mean, it's obviously a red state. Can his sort of Texas standing help or hurt him in the 2020 campaign?
He is a Democrat. He has been leaned upon very heavily by Texas Democrats in the past, including the person that put the effort together there in Puerto Rico, the Latino Victory Fund, that effort being headed up by another native San Antonian, Henry Munoz. So that he's been seen as a progressive here in the state of Texas. I don't think he gels well with Republicans here in the state. They see him really only as that.
Right. So I'm curious whether his announcement puts pressure on another liberal Texan, Beto O'Rourke, to make a decision. Wow, now we have lots of liberal Texans in the public eye.
That was the strangest statement I think I've ever heard someone say in all my years of covering Texas politics. But here we are. Yes, Beto O'Rourke has, kind of leaned out there. We don't know what he's going to do yet. He said that he wanted to serve out his congressional term, and that after January 3rd, he would get together with family. He was going to take a much-needed vacation and figure things out. Political experts here in the state have said, really, he could do anything. He could kind of lean his name out there for a while into a presidential primary and see how things go. If things weren't shaking out well, he could still run for Senate. One of our senior statesman, U.S. Senator John Cornyn, is going to be up for re-election in 2020 as well. And some have said that Beto O'Rourke might be running again in another contested Senate election.
Ryan Poppe, thank you so much for your time and your insight.
Thank you for having me.
So, Caitlin, a number of Democrats have already announced. Some are better known than others, at least on the national stage. With such a wide field, such a big group of potential Democratic presidential challengers, does it really benefit those who already are household names?
Well, Castro himself, in making this announcement and also speaking to Face the Nation on Sunday, kind of embraced the idea that he is nowhere near front-runner status. And he kind of said that he comes from an area where people aren't front-runners here, and he wants to help them, become front-runners. Now, he can benefit a little bit from being kind of a relatively lesser-known figure from, say, an Elizabeth Warren, who is going to have lots of scrutiny applied to her now that she's out traveling to the early states and is kind of a national brand. Castro did come to national prominence, really, when he gave that convention speech at the DNC for Obama, that keynote speech in 2012, and that kind of catapulted him into at least national attention, then becoming HUD secretary, as you mentioned. So he's trying to carve out a niche for himself in that way, but also, importantly, he's the only Latino in the field, at least so far, and from what we know about the candidates that are expected to get in, could be the only one running. So he's talked a lot about his heritage. He talks a lot about his grandmother, who came to the United States from Mexico, worked as a maid, had to leave school early, really kind of leaning into that personal story, hoping that has some resonance with voters.
So that underdog status is part of the appeal. Yeah. And of course, President Obama, a candidate who came out of nowhere, at least on the national stage, to then become catapulted to the presidency. Exactly. So there's a recent Politico magazine article that pointed out that Castro has never served as governor, senator, or vice president, and points out that every other Democratic presidential nominee since 1924 has held one of those positions. Will that hold him back, Caitlin?
Well, Democratic strategists think that this is really a free-for-all, that kind of a lot of the old rules of politics in terms of experience were thrown out the window with Donald Trump. And so you're going to see a variety of different candidates from a variety of different backgrounds and political positions, or not political positions. There are some outsiders who are thinking about getting in here. Castro has pointed to his experience as mayor and equating that to executive experience. There's going to be additional scrutiny, though, applied to that record. And he also points to his experience at HUD, and there's going to be scrutiny applied there. Already in 2016, when he was talked about as a potential vice presidential running mate for Hillary Clinton, a lot of liberal groups kind of went after him and expressed a real concern about HUD's policy at the time of selling kind of underwater mortgages to financial firms and Wall Street groups. So going to be a lot of scrutiny applied to him, but there are so many candidates in the field, the opposition research might be trained at others.
And so ultimately, do you think this large pool will dilute support for a Democratic candidate, or do you think that it will just generate excitement for the party?
Well, there's certainly a sense of why not me? There's a lot of opportunity, and lots of Democrats are kind of feeling at this point, why not me and why not now if you don't get in? But, the field will certainly winnow in the early states just by virtue of the share of the vote. So that seems to be the process. And Democrats, at least from an organizational perspective, kind of want to keep their hands out of this. They want the voters to make their decision. They want the early states to kind of work how they do. And so we'll see how that goes in. Obviously, the debates will also play a role.
It will be very exciting to see how this all plays out. Caitlin Huey-Burns, thank you.